You were created on purpose, not by accident. And that truth alone has the power to shake the foundation of how you see yourself and how you live your life. Because most people walk around believing they are here by chance, like their birth was random, like their existence is a coincidence, but there is nothing random about you. Not your breath, not your timing, not your struggles, not even your weaknesses. Before you were formed, a decision was already made. Before you ever took your first breath, a role was already assigned. You were thought about, planned, designed, and released into this world with intention. And when you understand that, you stop asking shallow questions like, why is life hard? And you start asking powerful questions like, what am I here to do? Because accidental things have no responsibility, but intentional things carry weight, purpose, and expectation. And if God went through the trouble of creating you, shaping your personality, wiring your mind, giving you specific gifts and placing you in a specific time in history, then your life cannot be meaningless. The problem is not that people are useless. The problem is that people don't know why they are here. So they settle for existing instead of becoming. They chase comfort instead of calling. They run after validation instead of vision. But you were not created to blend in. You were created to stand up. You were not created to copy lives. You were created to complete an assignment that only you can fulfill. And the moment you believe you are an accident, you lower your standards. You tolerate disrespect. You waste time. You abuse your potential. But the moment you realize you are intentional, everything changes. Your time becomes valuable. Your choices become serious. Your discipline becomes necessary, because intentional creations demand intentional living. You stop waking up asking, how do I survive today? And start waking up asking, how do I serve my purpose today? And yes, life may have knocked you down. People may have rejected you. Circumstances may have tried to convince you that you don't matter, but rejection doesn't cancel purpose. Failure doesn't erase assignment. Pain doesn't mean absence of God. Sometimes pain is proof that something important is being formed inside you, because the things created with the greatest purpose often go through the greatest pressure. Diamonds don't come from comfort. Leaders don't come from ease. And strong faith doesn't come from a life with no storms. So if your life has been hard, that doesn't mean you were forgotten. It might mean you were trusted with more, trusted with strength, trusted with impact, trusted with influence, because God doesn't waste suffering on accidental people. And understand this clearly. You are not here just to make money. Money is a tool, not a purpose. You are not here just to impress people. Applause fades. You are not here just to enjoy life. Enjoyment without meaning leads to emptiness. You are here to grow, to serve, to become, to reflect something greater than yourself. And the world doesn't need another distracted soul. It needs people who know who they are and why they are here. People who walk with conviction. People who stand when it's uncomfortable. People who don't sell their values for convenience. Because when you know you were created on purpose, you stop negotiating with your destiny. You stop delaying your growth. You stop playing small to make others comfortable. You start respecting yourself, your body, your mind, your time, your calling. You stop saying, I'll do it someday. And you start saying, now is the time. Because purpose delayed is purpose denied. And no one else can live your assignment for you. No one else can answer your call. No one else can carry your responsibility. And that's why comparison is dangerous. Because when you compare your life to someone else's, you disrespect the unique design placed inside you. Their journey is not your journey. Their timing is not your timing. Their mission is not your mission. You were created for a specific problem, a specific people, a specific impact. And if you don't rise up, that gap remains empty. The world feels it. Your family feels it. Your future feels it. And deep down, you feel it too. That restlessness, that feeling that there must be more, that quiet voice that tells you this life can't just be about repeating the same days until you get old. That voice is not confusion. It's a reminder that you were created on purpose. And purpose always demands growth, responsibility, and courage. It demands that you stop blaming your past and start building your future, that you stop waiting for permission and start taking action, that you stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as chosen. Because chosen people don't always feel confident, but they move anyway. They don't always understand the full plan, but they take the next step. They don't always have support, but they have conviction. And conviction will carry you further than motivation ever can, because motivation comes and goes, but purpose anchors you when life shakes you. And when you fully accept that you were not created by accident, you no longer live recklessly. You live intentionally. You guard your mind. You choose your circle wisely. You invest in discipline. You embrace learning. You respect the process, and you become dangerous to me mediocrity, because a person who knows they were created on purpose cannot be controlled by fear, cannot be silenced by doubt, cannot be stopped by failure. They may fall, but they rise with wisdom. They may struggle, but they struggle forward. They may get tired, but they don't quit, because quitting would mean walking away from something that was never accidental in the first place. Life is a divine assignment, not a random journey. And the moment you understand this, everything about how you move through life begins to change. Because most people treat life like something that just happens to them. They react instead of respond. They drift instead of decide. They wake up and let the day control them instead of stepping into the day with intention. But an assignment mindset changes the way you see every season, every delay, every setback, every opportunity, because assignments are given with purpose, direction, and expectation. Nobody gives an assignment without a desired outcome. And if life is an assignment, then your existence carries responsibility, meaning, and accountability. You are not just passing time here. You are not just filling space. You were sent here to do something specific, to grow into something specific, to become someone specific. And when you forget that life is an assignment, you start living casually. You procrastinate, you compromise, you waste years doing things that don't align with who you were called to be. But when you remember that life is not random, you stop asking why me in moments of struggle and start asking, what is this preparing me for? Because assignments are rarely comfortable. They stretch you, they challenge you, they force you to develop skills you didn't even know you had. And many people quit too early because they mistake difficulty for disqualification. But difficulty is often confirmation that the assignment is real. Nobody struggles with things that don't matter. Nobody faces resistance when there is no impact on the other side. Pressure reveals importance. And if your life has been marked by challenges, it doesn't mean you are unlucky. It may mean you were trusted with something meaningful, because random journeys have no direction, but assignments have checkpoints, lessons, growth phases, and deadlines. And when you see life as an assignment, even your pain gains meaning. Even your waiting has purpose. Even your failures become teachers, because you realize nothing is being wasted. Everything is shaping you for what you are meant to do. But this mindset also removes excuses, because if life is an assignment, then you can keep blaming your background, your parents, your past, your environment forever. At some point, responsibility shifts to you. You may not be responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do with what happened to you. And assignments require ownership. Nobody completes an assignment by complaining about how hard it is. They complete it by focusing on the task, by showing up daily, by doing the work even when motivation is low. And many people are spiritually distracted, emotionally tired, mentally confused, not because life is meaningless, but because they are avoiding their assignment. They are busy doing things that look productive but don't feel fulfilling, because fulfillment doesn't come from activity. It comes from alignment. When your actions align with your assignment, energy increases, clarity increases, discipline increases, and you stop feeling lost even if you don't have all the answers, because knowing your direction matters more than knowing every detail. Assignments are revealed step by step, not all at once. And that's where faith comes in. You walk even when the path isn't fully visible. You move even when certainty is missing. You obey even when understanding is incomplete, because assignment-driven people don't wait for perfect conditions. They move with commitment. And this is where many people fail. They want guarantees before obedience. They want clarity before action. They want comfort before commitment. But assignments don't work like that. Growth is unlocked through movement, not hesitation. And if you stay still waiting for everything to make sense, you'll miss seasons meant to shape you. Life doesn't pause until you feel ready. It keeps moving, and assignment-driven people move with it, learning as they go, adjusting as they grow, correcting as they mature, because the goal is progress, not perfection. And understand this: your assignment is bigger than your feelings. There will be days you feel tired, discouraged, unmotivated, unsure, but your assignment doesn't disappear because your emotions fluctuate. Feelings are temporary. Purpose is permanent. And when you live like life is random, emotions control you. But when you live like life is an assignment, discipline leads you. You do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it, because you know what's at stake. And what's at stake is not just your success, it's the impact your obedience has on others, because assignments are never just about the individual. They affect families, communities, generations. There are people connected to your assignment who will never reach what they're supposed to reach if you don't step into what you're supposed to do. And that's why delaying purpose is dangerous. Procrastination doesn't just hurt you. It creates gaps in the lives of others. And many people underestimate their influence because they think small of themselves. But assignments don't depend on self-esteem. They depend on obedience. You don't need to feel great to move forward. You need to decide to move forward. And the moment you do, strength follows action, clarity follows commitment, confidence follows consistency, not the other way around. And when you accept that life is a divine assignment, you stop running from responsibility and start embracing it. You stop asking what's the easiest path and start asking what's the right path. You stop living for approval and start living for alignment, because approval fades, but assignment remains. And at the end of the day, peace doesn't come from having everything you want. It comes from knowing you did what you were sent here to do, even if it was hard, even if it cost you comfort, even if it required sacrifice, because assignments demand sacrifice. But sacrifice always pays in growth, in depth, in meaning, and a life lived on assignment may not always look impressive to the world, but it feels fulfilling on the inside, because you know you're not drifting, you're moving with intention. You're not lost, you're learning, you're not late, you're developing. And when storms come, you don't collapse, because you understand storms don't cancel assignments. They strengthen the one carrying them. And that mindset changes everything about how you wake up, how you work, how you choose, how you endure. Because once you know life is a divine assignment, you stop treating days like something to get through and start treating them like opportunities to grow into who you were sent here to become. Responsibility begins the moment awareness starts, because before awareness, people live on autopilot, reacting to life, blaming circumstances, pointing fingers and excusing behavior. But the moment a person becomes aware, truly aware, everything changes. Awareness is dangerous, because once you know better, you are expected to do better. Ignorance may delay responsibility, but awareness removes excuses. And this is where many people struggle, not because they don't have potential, but because they resist responsibility. They want the benefits of growth without the weight of accountability. But life doesn't work like that. The moment you realize that your choices matter, that your habits shape your future, that your mindset influences your direction, responsibility is no longer optional. It becomes necessary, because awareness is a call to action, not a suggestion. And many people are uncomfortable with awareness because it exposes areas where change is required. It shines light on discipline they've been avoiding, conversations they've been delaying, standards they've been lowering, and truths they've been running from. But growth never happens in comfort. It happens in confrontation, confronting who you are versus who you're supposed to become. And responsibility is that bridge between the two, because knowing the truth without acting on it leads to frustration, guilt, and stagnation. That's why some people feel stuck even though they consume motivation, watch speeches, read books, and hear truth. Awareness without responsibility creates inner conflict. You know what you should do, but you don't do it. And that gap slowly drains confidence, peace, and self-respect, because deep down, you can't fool yourself. You may fool others, but you know when you're avoiding growth, and avoidance always has a cost. Responsibility doesn't mean perfection. It means ownership, owning your reactions, owning your progress, owning your mistakes, owning your future. And the moment you stop saying, this is just how I am, and start saying, this is who I'm choosing to be, responsibility has begun, because identity is shaped by decisions, not desires. And many people want change, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with it. They want a better life without better habits, better results without better discipline, better outcomes without better choices. But awareness exposes that contradiction. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you understand the cost of your habits, you can't pretend they're harmless. Once you recognize your potential, you can't keep living beneath it without feeling the tension. And that tension is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to push you, to wake you up, to move you forward. Because responsibility is not punishment, it's empowerment. It's the realization that you have more control than you thought, that your future is not completely at the mercy of circumstances, that your decisions carry weight, and that realization is freeing, but only if you embrace it. Because responsibility gives you power, but power requires discipline, and discipline requires sacrifice, and sacrifice requires maturity, and maturity is choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. And this is where awareness becomes a dividing line. Some people step into responsibility and grow. Others step away and stay the same. And both decisions shape their lives because awareness doesn't force change. It invites it and invites accountability. And accountability is uncomfortable because it removes the option to blame. Once you are aware, you can't keep blaming your parents forever, your past forever, your environment forever. Yes, those things matter. Yes, they have influence, but responsibility begins when you stop using them as crutches and start using them as context. Context explains behavior, but it doesn't excuse staying the same. And growth demands that shift, the shift from victim mindset to ownership mindset, from asking, why did this happen to me, to asking, what am I going to do about it now? Because responsibility is forward focused. It doesn't deny the pain of the past, but it refuses to let the past dictate the future. And people who grow are not people who had easy lives. They are people who accepted responsibility early. They understood that waiting for someone to save them was wasting time, that waiting for perfect conditions was an illusion, that waiting to feel ready was a trap. So they moved with awareness, imperfect but committed, uncertain but responsible, because responsibility doesn't require confidence. It builds it. Every time you choose discipline over excuses, confidence grows. Every time you choose action over delay, self-respect increases. Every time you take responsibility for your life, even in small ways, momentum builds, and momentum changes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. And that identity shift is powerful. Because once you see yourself as responsible, you act responsibly, you protect your time, you manage your energy, you choose your circle carefully, you become intentional with your words, your habits, your goals, because you understand everything you allow either builds or breaks your future. And awareness sharpens that understanding. Suddenly distractions feel expensive. Toxic environments feel heavy. Excuses feel weak because you see the cost clearly. And responsibility means paying attention to that cost, not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because every choice costs something. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price for growth or keep paying the price for stagnation. And awareness makes that choice unavoidable. You can't claim ignorance anymore. And that's why awareness often feels uncomfortable at first. It disrupts old patterns. It challenges familiar behaviors. It calls out self-sabotage. But discomfort is often the doorway to transformation, because responsibility reshapes priorities. What once felt important loses value. What once felt optional becomes essential. You stop negotiating with your standard. You stop lowering the bar to match your habits. Instead, you raise your habits to meet your standards. And that alignment brings peace, not because life becomes easy, but because your actions match your values. And there is peace in alignment, even in struggle. And responsibility also teaches patience, because once you accept ownership, you understand that results take time, that growth is gradual, that mastery is built daily, not instantly, and that understanding keeps you grounded. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop comparing timelines. You stop rushing the process because you're focused on doing your part consistently. And consistency is the language of responsibility, showing up when it's boring, staying disciplined when no one is watching, choosing integrity when compromise would be easier, because awareness has shown you the bigger picture, and you're no longer living for immediate comfort. You're living for long-term impact. And that's the mark of someone who has stepped into responsibility, someone who understands that awareness is not just knowledge, it's a call to rise, to mature, to lead yourself well. Because once you are aware, you are responsible for the direction you choose, the effort you give, the growth you pursue, and the life you build from that point forward. Your pain is preparation for your mission. And that truth is hard to accept when you are in the middle of the struggle, because pain doesn't feel purposeful when it's happening. It feels confusing, unfair, overwhelming, and sometimes unbearable. But pain has never been random in the lives of people who were called to make an impact. It has always been a classroom, a training ground, a refining fire, because missions require strength, wisdom, depth, and empathy. And those qualities are rarely developed in comfort. Most people want purpose without process. calling without cost, impact without inconvenience. But life doesn't prepare leaders that way. It prepares them through pressure, through loss, through delay, through rejection, through seasons that don't make sense at the time, because preparation often looks like punishment before it looks like promotion. And that's why many people misinterpret their pain. They think something is wrong with them. They think they've been forgotten. They think they're being punished, when in reality, they are being prepared, because missions that change lives require people who have been shaped, not just informed. And pain shapes you in ways success never can. Success may build confidence, but pain builds character, patience, humility, and resilience. And without those, purpose collapses under pressure, because when you step into your mission, resistance doesn't decrease, it increases. Responsibility doesn't get lighter, it gets heavier. And if you haven't been trained by hardship, you won't be able to carry what you're called to carry. And that's why the things you went through were not meant to destroy you. They were meant to develop you, to stretch you beyond comfort, to expose weaknesses, to force growth, because growth that costs nothing is usually worth nothing. And think about it. The areas where you hurt the most are often the areas where you have the most insight, the most compassion, the most authority. People listen to those who have been through something, not those who just read about it. Your pain gives you credibility, not because pain is good, but because surviving it teaches lessons that can't be learned any other way. And when you look back honestly, you'll realize that the seasons that broke you open also built you up. They forced you to slow down, to reflect, to question, to mature, to let go of illusions, to confront yourself. And those moments, as painful as they were, stripped away what was fake and strengthened what was real, because missions require authenticity, not performance. They require depth, not image. And pain has a way of removing masks. It exposes who you are when nothing is working, when support is gone, when answers are missing. And who you become in those moments is who you carry into your mission. Because purpose is not just about what you do. It's about who you are while doing it. And pain refines identity. It teaches you what matters and what doesn't. It teaches you the value of time, the importance of boundaries, the necessity of faith, the danger of pride, the power of perseverance. And those lessons are essential, because without them, success would ruin you, influence would inflate you, recognition would distract you, and missions fail when character can't sustain the weight of opportunity. So preparation through pain is protection, not punishment. It's life ensuring that when the moment comes, you're ready to stand, not just shine. And many people quit in the preparation phase because they don't see the connection between what they're going through and where they're going. But preparation rarely explains itself in advance. It only makes sense in retrospect. Later you realize why you had to wait, why you had to lose, why you had to struggle, why you had to grow alone, because those experiences equipped you with strength you didn't know you need, perspective you couldn't have gained any other way, and empathy that allows you to serve others with sincerity. Because missions are about service, not spotlight, and pain teaches service by teaching humility. It reminds you that you are human, that you are dependent, that you are not self-made, that you need grace, patience, and support, and that awareness keeps you grounded when success comes, because success without humility becomes arrogance, and arrogance disconnects you from the very people you're meant to serve. And that's why pain often comes before purpose, because pain keeps purpose pure. It keeps the mission rooted in compassion rather than ego. And understand this clearly, your pain was not wasted. Even the parts that came from mistakes, even the seasons where you fell short, even the moments where you feel you failed, those experiences taught you consequences, accountability, resilience, and wisdom. And wisdom is essential for leadership, because leaders who haven't failed often lack understanding, patience, and grace. But leaders who have been broken and rebuilt carry a different kind of strength, a quiet confidence, a grounded presence, a depth that speaks without shouting, because they know what it's like to be on the other side of hope. And that's why your story matters. Not the polished version, but the real one, the messy one, the painful one, because your mission is connected to your story, not in spite of it. And when you stop resenting your pain and start learning from it, power returns to you. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what did this teach me? What did this prepare me for? Who did this shape me to help? Because pain often points directly to purpose. The things that hurt you the most often reveal the things you are meant to heal in others. And that realization transforms suffering into service. It gives meaning to struggle, direction to recovery, and focus to growth. And that doesn't mean pain disappears. It means pain gets redeemed. It becomes fuel instead of a burden, a lesson instead of a limitation. And when you reach that point, you stop running from discomfort and start respecting the process, because you understand that preparation is rarely comfortable, but it is always necessary. And when the mission finally demands more of you, you will not collapse. Because you have been trained, tested, stretched, and strengthened, you will recognize the moment, not because it's easy, but because it feels familiar, because you've already carried weight, endured pressure, and survived storms. And that's how you know your pain was not pointless. It was preparation, shaping you into someone capable of carrying a mission you were always meant to fulfill. Excuses delay purpose, obedience unlocks it, and this is one of the hardest truths to accept because excuses feel reasonable, comfortable, and justified. They sound logical, they protect the ego, they give temporary relief from responsibility, but every excuse quietly pushes purpose further away because purpose responds to movement, not intention, and many people have good intentions but weak obedience. They talk about what they will do, what they plan to become, what they are called to pursue, but calling without action remains a dream, not a destiny. And excuses thrive in delay. The longer you wait, the easier it becomes to justify staying where you are because excuses adapt to every season. If you're young, the excuse is time. If you're older, the excuse is age. If you're struggling, the excuse is resources. If you're stable, the excuse is comfort. There's always an excuse available, but obedience requires decision, and decision requires courage because obedience often demands action before clarity, sacrifice before reward, movement before confidence. And that's why many people avoid it, not because they don't believe in purpose, but because obedience exposes fear, it exposes doubt, it exposes attachment to comfort, and excuses are often just fear wearing a reasonable mask, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discomfort, fear of responsibility. But fear never unlocks purpose. It only preserves the familiar, and the familiar may feel safe, but it rarely leads to growth because growth lives on the other side of obedience. Obedience to truth, obedience to conviction, obedience to the inner knowing that says you were meant for more than this. And that knowing doesn't shout, it whispers, and excuses drown out that whisper. They keep you busy explaining why now is not the right time, why conditions aren't ideal, why you need one more sign, one more confirmation, one more advantage. But obedience doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It responds to clear direction, even when the path is incomplete, because obedience trusts that clarity follows commitment, not the other way around. And this is where people get stuck. They want certainty before movement, but certainty is often the result of movement, not the prerequisite. And excuses love that waiting period because while you wait, nothing changes. And as long as nothing changes, excuses feel validated, but purpose doesn't negotiate with excuses. It requires alignment, and alignment is proven through action, not words, because obedience is action with faith, action without guarantees, action rooted in conviction rather than comfort. And when you obey, even imperfectly, momentum begins, doors open that you couldn't see before, strength shows up that you didn't feel before, resources appear that you didn't have before. But none of that happens while you're explaining why you can't move yet, because excuses freeze potential. They keep it locked in thought instead of released in action. And many people mistake being busy for being obedient. They fill their days with activity, but avoid the one thing they know they should do, because obedience often points to the uncomfortable task, the hard conversation, the disciplined habit, the consistent effort, the risk that threatens ego. And excuses protect ego by avoiding risk. But purpose doesn't care about ego. It cares about impact. And impact always requires obedience. Obedience to grow when it's easier to stay the same. Obedience to forgive when it's easier to hold resentment. Obedience to start when it's easier to wait. Obedience to be consistent when motivation fades, because excuses thrive on emotion. But obedience is anchored in commitment. And commitment doesn't depend on how you feel today. It depends on what you decided matters. And the people who step into purpose are not people without excuses. They are people who chose obedience despite having excuses. Because everyone has reasons not to move, not to change, not to grow. But only some people decide that their purpose is more important than their comfort. And that decision marks a turning point, because obedience simplifies life. It removes endless debate, endless overthinking, endless justification. It replaces it with action, and action brings clarity, confidence, and progress, while excuses bring stagnation, frustration, and regret. And regret is often the echo of obedience delayed too long, because delayed obedience feels harmless in the moment, but but over time it compounds into missed opportunities, wasted seasons, and unrealized potential. And that weight is heavy, heavier than the discomfort of obedience ever was, because obedience costs something up front, but excuses cost you over time. They cost momentum, they cost growth, they cost self-respect, because deep down, you know when you're avoiding what you're called to do. And that avoidance slowly erodes confidence, because confidence is built by keeping promises to yourself. And excuses are broken, promises repeated daily, but obedience restores self-trust. Every time you act in alignment with your values, strength returns, clarity sharpens, discipline deepens, because obedience trains you to lead yourself. And self-leadership is essential for purpose. You cannot lead an assignment you won't obey. And understand this, obedience doesn't mean everything becomes easy. It means everything becomes meaningful. Challenges still come, resistance still appears, uncertainty still exists. But now you're moving forward instead of standing still. And forward motion changes how obstacles feel. They become problems to solve, not reasons to quit, because obedience reframes struggle as part of progress, not proof of failure. And excuses collapse under pressure. They fall apart when life demands results, because excuses don't produce outcomes. Obedience does. And that's why obedience unlocks purpose, not because it earns it, but because it aligns you with it. Purpose responds to alignment, to consistency, to faith in action. And when you finally choose obedience, even in small steps, something shifts internally. Hesitation loses power, doubt loses volume, fear loses control, because movement weakens fear, and clarity grows with every obedient step. And you realize that purpose was never waiting for perfection. It was waiting for participation, waiting for willingness, waiting for action. And the moment you stop explaining and start obeying, progress accelerates, growth becomes inevitable, and purpose begins to unfold in ways excuses could never allow. You are alive because your mission is not finished, and that truth alone should shake you awake, because most people live as if they've already arrived, as if life is a rehearsal and the real moment will come later. But the reality is your existence right now is not random. It is deliberate, it is intentional, and it carries weight far beyond what you can see. Every breath you take, every opportunity you encounter, every challenge that crosses your path is connected to a bigger assignment that only you can fulfill. And many people miss this. They live small, they drift, they settle, they waste time thinking that someone else will do what they were created to do. But your mission is not transferable. It cannot be outsourced. It cannot be paused. It cannot be completed by imitation. It requires your unique gifts, your vision, your courage, your faith, and your persistence. And the moment you realize that your life is unfinished, everything changes, because unfinished means there is still work to do, lessons to learn, people to impact, and growth to achieve. But most people run from responsibility because unfinished feels uncomfortable. It feels like pressure, like stress, like obligation, like weight. But that weight is a sign, a reminder that you were placed here for a reason. And ignoring it doesn't remove it. It only prolongs the process. It only delays destiny. It only postpones fulfillment, because missions that matter are rarely easy. They are often challenging, testing your patience, resilience, faith, and courage. And the people who thrive are the ones who embrace the unfinished nature of their life as a call to action, not a curse, as a reason to rise, not an excuse to hide, as a challenge to grow, not a justification to quit. And understanding that your mission is unfinished creates urgency. It eliminates complacency. It dissolves distraction. It forces focus, because if you are alive and the mission is not complete, every day you waste is a day you are not fulfilling what you were sent to do. Every moment spent on trivialities is a moment stolen from impact. And that realization should drive you, push you, propel you beyond comfort, beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond hesitation. Because unfinished work is not a suggestion. It is a command from life, from God, from destiny itself, that you are called to action, to service, to excellence, to influence, to contribution. And ignoring that call doesn't make it go away. It only grows louder in the silence, in the wasted time, in the moments you choose comfort over courage. But your mission cannot be completed in comfort. It cannot be fulfilled in avoidance. It cannot be accomplished by hesitation. It requires movement, sacrifice, perseverance, and focus, because there are people depending on you, situations that need your wisdom, opportunities that require your preparation, and outcomes that only your effort can secure. And that is why unfinished is not negative. It is powerful. It is motivating. It is a call to rise every day with intention, to plan, to execute, to grow, to refine, to strengthen, to teach, to inspire, to lead, because missions are bigger than feelings, bigger than temporary circumstances, bigger than fear, bigger than procrastination, bigger than mistakes, bigger than delays. And yet it is in the midst of all that you are expected to rise, to keep moving, to keep believing, to keep showing up, to keep learning, to keep serving, to keep loving, to keep giving, because the unfinished nature of your mission is what allows growth. It is what creates potential. It is what builds resilience. It is what forces preparation. It is what shapes your character. It is what refines your mind. It is what strengthens your spirit. It is what develops your influence, because if everything was already completed, you would not be tested. You would not learn. You would not evolve. You would not develop depth. You would not gain the wisdom needed to lead others. You would not become someone capable of carrying the weight of what matters. And life intentionally leaves your mission unfinished until you are ready, until you are strong enough, until you have developed endurance, until you have learned patience, until you have mastered consistency, until you have grown through challenges, until you have embraced responsibility, until you have built character. And yet many people mistake unfinished for failure. They see incompletion as defeat. They see delay as denial. They see struggle as punishment, but it is actually preparation. It is actually opportunity. It is actually shaping. It is actually refining. It is actually growth, because God doesn't leave missions unfinished to harm you. He leaves them unfinished to teach you, to develop you, to equip you, to empower you, to strengthen you, to deepen you, to prepare you for what only you can do. And the awareness that your mission is not finished should ignite something inside you, a fire, a refusal to waste time, a determination to rise above distraction, to push past fear, to endure through difficulty, to remain faithful through setbacks, to be consistent when motivation fades, to take responsibility for every action, because each choice either brings you closer to fulfilling your mission or further from it. And there is no neutral space in significant living. Every day matters. Every decision matters. Every moment matters. And knowing your mission is not finished is both a weight and a privilege, a call to action and a reason for urgency, a reminder that you are still alive. You still have capacity. You still have opportunity. You still have influence. You still have the chance to impact lives, to change circumstances, to fulfill your calling, to leave a legacy, to complete what only you can complete, to answer the assignment, to rise to the responsibility, to embrace the purpose, to walk boldly in faith, to move with intention, to grow through challenge, to serve, to lead, to inspire, to persevere, to contribute, to live fully, because life is unfinished. Your mission is unfinished. And as long as you are breathing, the work is not done. The impact is not complete. The assignment is still waiting. And that truth should propel you into action every single day, because being alive is not random. Being here is intentional. Being unfinished is powerful. Being prepared is essential. And being obedient to your mission is non-negotiable.